be ready for that shit. But I was gonna just quickly go over the DK changes, so we can take a quick peek at these. Because let's face it, we're all DK boys here, right? Everyone's here because of DKs, right? Right? Stale white bread. Your revenge. How is it being a dad, man? It's been a few weeks now. Surprised to see the only buffs to healers were resto druids. Well, Wario will argue against this, but they did buff Mistweaver in the sense that they reduced mana cost. But yeah, it's a joke. You're so tired. I believe it, dude. I believe it. Have you had a full night's sleep yet? This is going to be interesting. Undead cloaks and I'll be as tattered as the Forsaken wearing them. Does that mean that every undead cloak is going to be tattered? Is it going to adjust based on how much you fuck up your own DK or undead? Two, 3 hours of sleep at a time? Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that, man. It'll be worth it someday, though. So I hear. Alright, so let's run through the DK changes real quick. Alright, so DK 9.0.5, releasing on Tuesday, 3 days from now. What to expect for DKs. So overall, not a lot of changes. There's a couple small nerfs or like utility nerfs. So we'll just run through it real quick. So first off, Inexorable Assault no longer consumes a spell reflection. Honestly, never even noticed that. Not going to affect me at all. Probably irrelevant. I've never tried to eat a spell reflect with Inexorable Assault. I've never even thought of that. It's actually brilliant. And I wish I knew that was a thing, although I still probably wouldn't have tried to play around it. Fix an issue that it's a raid thing. Shackle the Unworthy gets a nice buff, both damage wise and damage reduction wise. So it was already good. This just makes it even better. It's just you can't compete with Abomination Limb and how well it works with how DKs do damage, how they enable other classes to do damage. I mean, at the end of the day, DK is an enabler for Windwalker, Warrior, you know, better damaged cleave classes. So Abomination Limb is a big part of that. And so while Shackle the Unworthy this is a really strong buff, and it was already pretty good. Abomination Limb is still going to be better. Abomination Limb now correctly deals damage and pulls in enemies while the Death Knight is crowd controlled. This is big for RBGs. I personally tested it out where if a rogue saps you and you trinket sap Abom Limb, they can cap during the blind. Even if you're standing on top of them with a Abom Limb, slapping them all over the face, they could still trinket the blind, or they could still blind you after the trinket and cap on top of Abomination Limb. So hopefully this will change that, and you can trinket sap a Abom Limb, and that'll spin the flag for 12 seconds, and then right before Abom Limb ends, you put up Remorseless Winter, and that'll spin the flag for another 8 seconds. So you could potentially spin a flag while CC'd for 20 seconds, which will make DK much safer to base it as Frost, even as Unholy. Unholy is already pretty safe, but Frost is not. So this will help a lot with that. This one sucks. Abom Limb no longer pulls in enemies that are stealth. Yes, you used to be able to use Abom Limb to grip in people who are stealth and pull them out of stealth. I've used that many times after suggestions in my stream chat that it was actually a thing. I never realized it was a thing until someone pointed it out to me. But it helped so much against like rogue mage comps, or you know, any situation where you expect a stealthy, like defending your flag carrier in Warsong Ultra Twin Peaks. This was so useful in pulling people out of stealth and taking away that advantage for them. So this is a utility nerf, but it's pretty major. I would say this is a bigger nerf than this is a buff. The ability to pull people out of stealth was huge. And it'll be interesting to see if the AoE damage will still break stealth. Because of this first change, it'll be interesting to see like if a rogue saps you without cloaking first, while a Abom Limb is up, will the damage break them out of stealth and it just won't pull them in yet? Or will they completely be able to negate your Abomination? That'll be interesting to see. This one's not really relevant. This is more of a PvE change. There were earlier notes that suggested that Necrotic Strike would get a cleave effect when in Death and Decay, so Death's Due combined with Defile might have an interesting niche, but Abomination would still be better to grip them onto and keep them on top of your Death and Decay or your Defile, so that you could cleave Necrotic Strikes with Dark Transformation and Infected Wounds AoE spreading your sores or whatever. Alright, next up. What else for DK? Rune Carving Legendaries. These don't really matter. Reanimated Shambler gets a small buff, which is good. It's a decent like fill-in legendary. I actually used it at the very beginning when I didn't have anything better. And it could crit for 8-10k. So it was like a solid chunk of burst when it procced. It just barely ever procced. And that's still going to be the case. I mean, it's going to proc a little bit more now. And it's going to be a little bit better. It's going to deal a little more damage, so it's still decent. But I mean, for an Unholy DK compared to Frenzied Monstrosity for burst, compared to Super Strain for sustained, compared to the AMS legendary for utility, I mean, it's just up against really tough competition as far as legendaries are concerned. So this doesn't really change anything. It's more of a PvE change because that's a pretty solid PvE legendary, I think. It could have really good burst potential if you're already padding damage up there, but compared to the on-demand potential of Frenzied Monstrosity, the Reanimated Shambler is pretty much going to be irrelevant. This one kind of sucks. I don't really like this one much. Remove the stun when summoning the temporary ghoul version of Raised Dead. It's kind of annoying. I understand why they did it. And I'm sure a lot of people were complaining about the ghoul, or the ghoul stun, I should say, but it was really easy to game the stun and know when the stun was going to happen. You know, you click summon Raised Dead, and about 5 seconds later, it's going to stun the guy for a very short stun. So I can imagine why people would be upset with the randomly putting your enemy on stun DR. But if you knew what was going to happen and you knew it was going to happen, then you could easily set it up to land right after your dragon stun, which was just great for maintaining consistent pressure and, you know, a very small CC chain. So I'm not really a fan of this. I understand why they did it, but it still kind of sucks. Not really happy about it, but we'll adjust. And Satiated debuff from Rune of Sanguination is now removed when entering PvP instances. This is like a bug fix. I can't believe that they waited up for a major patch to put this in, but yeah, that'll be nice. That's really only a rune that you would use for double DPS 2s when you think you're going to be the target. So it's not a huge change. I don't really understand why it wasn't just a hotfix much earlier on, but there you have it. And then finally, Anima Powers. Who gives a shit? So we'll just skip that because it's kind of a joke that they do all these changes to Anima Powers and so little with PvP tuning. But that about wraps it up. So overall, it's a minor nerf for DKs this patch. Just everything overall. Again, in summary, the Abomination dealing damage to enemies when you're crowd controlled is nice for flag spinning in RBGs and everything like that. The Abomination no longer pulling enemies in from stealth is a pretty big nerf to our utility in any type of rogue matchup, whether it's rogue mage arenas, even druids in arena, or protecting flag carriers in Warsong Gulch and Twin Peaks, the ability to pull stealthies out as they were trying to getting up on your EFC or not EFC, FC. And then this irrelevant thing, the removal of the stun, is understandable but kind of sucks. And this should have just been a hotfix, and you probably won't be running Rune of Sanguination anyway, except for very niche situations. So those are the Death Knight changes to expect for Tuesday for 9.0.5. So overall slight nerfs, but the biggest buff comes in the form of the Exploiter buff for warriors, right? Our biggest buff as DKs comes from the fact that they are buffing one of our best partners. That's pretty much all we have going for us right now, is that warriors are about to be extremely overtuned, and we pair really well with warriors. So at least we have that to look forward to. But yeah, so that's what to expect in 9.0.5, and I mean, hopefully we will see more continued small changes to PvP. But as it stands right now, it's a slight nerf to DKs, but nothing major, and we'll be just fine.